Are live. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Liz Wheeler Show. I wanted to start the show today by sharing some thoughts with you. I've obviously been thinking about what happened yesterday pretty consistently for the past 24 hours. And I've addressed it a couple of times. I was on Glenn Beck's show this morning, I was on Viva's show this afternoon. But I wanted to directly address you, my loyal audience. And we're going to talk about Zelensky being thrown out of the White House, which I think is more important. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I wanted to share just a couple of thoughts that I had with you about what happened yesterday. And I think the best way to do this is just to tell you a narrative of what happened chronologically leading up to yesterday and then what happened throughout the day yesterday. So, not even to set the record straight, but just so that you know exactly the facts and the reality of what happened. So, about 2 weeks ago, I was invited to the White House. I was invited to the White House to meet with Vice President JD Vance. And I wasn't actually given a reason why I was invited to the White House. I didn't know. I remember telling my producer, I don't know why I was invited to the White House. My speculation, I actually thought I was being summoned to be scolded because I had just criticized President Trump's executive order on in vitro fertilization gently because I like Trump, but trying to lead him toward closer to, I'm a little more based on the pro life issues than he is. I thought I might be getting summoned to be scolded because I'm not afraid to criticize politicians. In fact, I not only think it is my job to criticize politicians, I think it is especially important that we criticize politicians on our own side, criticize Republicans. And that's, of course, why you are all here with me because I am not afraid to speak reality. I am not afraid to tell the truth. I am not afraid to criticize, even when it might be unpopular to criticize. And I'd like to think that you appreciate me for being a straight shooter. I think that you do. And I appreciate you guys for being here with me. But I also understand why some people yesterday were mad. I understand why some people today are still mad about what happened yesterday. And I want to tell you, I'm mad too about what happened yesterday. Again, the best way to kind of explain what happened is to walk through the chronological events, which is what we're going to do. So I got this invitation to visit the White House, and what an honor. Doesn't matter if it's a Republican president or a Democrat president, it is simply a surreal experience to visit the White House, especially the West Wing, the Oval Office, the amount of history that's happened in there. It's an honor and a privilege, and it's just fun to be invited in the White House. And I think any one of us would accept such an invitation, regardless of what the pretext for the meeting might be. It didn't matter what the meeting was about. I wanted to go. And I wanted to go see and I wanted to go talk to them and I wanted to have access to these people because it's an incredible thing that we pulled off electing Donald Trump president of the United States. And I wanted to see that in action. So when I arrive at the White House, I am taken into, I don't remember the name of the room, but it's the room that's right across the hallway from the Oval Office. It's where the cabinet meetings happen, and it's a secure room. So as I'm taken into the White House, I give up my cell phone. You put your cell phone in a little secure box downstairs so that there's no technology, no outside technology that's brought into the West Wing of the White House for obvious security reasons. But this secure room, there's no technology in this room, no outside cell phones. And I arrive in this room, and this meeting was being chaired by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who is doing a fabulous job as press secretary. And I learned very quickly that the purpose of this meeting, there were about 15 of us, I learned, that were invited. I previously did not know who else was invited to this meeting. I come to learn that this meeting, the purpose of this meeting is about replacing the legacy media, the corporate media with you, with us, with what we do, with new media, with alternative media, with regular Americans, and that the Trump White House is not going to be rewarding the legacy media for lying to you and for covering up for the Democrats, for acting as propagandists, for fomenting such hatred that President Trump suffered 2 assassination attempts. The corporate media is not going to be rewarded for being biased liars anymore, that the Trump administration is going to go directly to the people. And this is a remarkable development to bypass the legacy media, and what an honor to be included. And so we talked with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt about what that looks like, what that would mean. I don't even know, I didn't have my phone, so I can't tell you the amount of time that elapsed. But after Caroline Leavitt spoke to us, Vice President JD Vance came in the room, and he took over chairing the meeting, and he started talking to us about, what the administration is doing and how we can communicate if we have questions about things, how we can replace the legacy media, et cetera, et cetera. And in the middle of JD Vance speaking to us, President Trump comes in the room. He crossed the hall from the Oval Office and came unexpectedly in the room. I'm told that it was not part of the original agenda for him to come in, but he came in and he talked to us, and he brought Harrison Butker with him, the kicker from the Chiefs. He was visiting the White House, so Trump brought him along to visit us in this room, and then he invited us. He said, we have a couple of things to do, but then we're gonna invite you over to the Oval Office if you want. He told his vice president, JD Vance, to bring us over. So President Trump left the room, and we were continuing to speak with Vice President Vance until the time at which we didn't quite go to the Oval Office yet. The access that we were being given to these both the president, the vice president, the cabinet levels secretaries. JD Vance left the room, and the next guest of honor, you could call them, were Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel, Attorney General Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. And they came in the room and they spoke to us for a couple minutes, and then we were ushered into the Oval Office. In the Oval Office, I mean, what a surreal experience. You look at the artwork around. Trump has a portrait of George Washington and of Ronald Reagan and all different kinds of things. It's very, I don't even know the word except surreal to be in the Oval Office. But if you work in politics, if you're an American patriot, you get pretty giddy being given a tour of the inner workings of the White House. So we go back to our room after we go back to the meeting room after we were with President Trump, and Attorney General Bondi gets some banker's boxes full of those now infamous white binders out of the box. And on the front of those binders is a cover sheet that says the Epstein Files Phase 1. And, our faces, I'm sure, reflected our surprise when we saw that. We were like, oh, whoa, is this going to be the dirt? Is this going to be the declassified Epstein files? And Attorney General Pam Bondi was very clear from the beginning that no, it was not. She basically didn't want us to misunderstand what it was. She communicated to us that the binder was essentially a nothing burger. It was mostly things that had already been released. There might have been a couple of things that hadn't, but it was nothing. It was just a Rolodex of phone numbers and some flight logs. And she simultaneously, as she was handing out these binders, was handing out pages of a letter she had written to Kash Patel, because the story here wasn't what was in the Epstein binder. She communicated to us. The story was that the SDNY was stonewalling her. Meaning, when Pam Bondi had requested all of the Epstein files to be given to her, to be put on her desk, the FBI gave her these 200 pages and said, this is it. And she goes, this is it. This is all. Well, a whistleblower contacted her. She told us the night before we were there, so Wednesday night, and told her that the SDNY actually had many more files related to Epstein, and that they were hiding them from Pam Bondi. They were defying President Trump. They were defying Pam Bondi. They were defying Kash Patel. And that's the story. And she said that she was writing this letter to FBI Director Kash Patel to order the FBI to turn over every single document that was related to Epstein. And the insinuation was that's where the real dirt was, in those documents. So I want to make that very clear. It was communicated to us that the binder was not full of the Epstein files, that this is the evidence. This binder was the tangible evidence that the deep state was trying to subvert Trump. The deep state was lying to Bondi. The deep state was lying to Kash Patel. And they had the audacity to pretend that these documents that we had already seen were the proof that we're all looking for. So fast forward to, we then meet with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. We meet with Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK, which is a story for a different day. What a fun conversation that was. But then we're told we are out of time in that room, that the UK Prime Minister is coming, and we have to get out of that room, and that we were going to be ushered back downstairs so that we could have access to our cell phones again. We go out the back door of the White House, and that is, of course, when we encounter unexpectedly a press gaggle outside the back of the White House. Now, this press gaggle, I assume, was there to cover the UK Prime Minister's visit. We weren't aware that they were going to be there, but their faces when we went out that door, you want to talk dour, sour, bitter, disgusted to see us because we're the new media faces. And we laughed at them because they're liars. They covered up incredible scandals. They were propagandists for Joe Biden's corrupt administration. And then now they're relegated to the bushes while we're given access to the most powerful people running our country. And we should actually take a victory lap over them because they deserve to be humiliated. So yes, we were laughing when we walked out of that door at the surprise on the legacy media's face. We were also laughing. I told this story earlier when I was talking to Glenn Beck because one of the White House staffers made a funny comment as we were being ushered out the door. He was telling us to hurry because the British are coming. The British are coming. And we're all political nerds, and we thought that was funny, and we were laughing, and we were giddy because we had just been in the Oval Office, given a coin by President Trump. And when the press gaggle was like, what are those binders that you're holding? Yeah, we held them up because it was our impression, and this is very important. It was our impression that within about 90 seconds, we would have access to our phones and we would be able to post the real story. The real story, of course, not being that we were carrying binders full of actual Epstein files, but that the SDNY was hiding files and the FBI was pretending that that binder was the real deal and the complete collection of files when it wasn't. So it was our expectation and our understanding that within about a minute, we would be able to go live on X and break this story, break this exclusive story. We were given that story as an exclusive instead of it being given to the legacy media. Of course, when that photo began to go viral, people were like, well, why are you laughing holding the Epstein files? And I understand that reaction because the binder appeared to be the actual Epstein files, and there was no yet context that actually the real story is about the SDNY. It was at that moment, unfortunately, and this was a critical mistake by whoever made this decision, that we were asked to respect an embargo on that information, on the binder's existence, on what was in the binder, and on Pam Bondi's letter to FBI Director Kash Patel. We were asked to wait 3 hours till 3:30 before we would post anything about it. And again, we were not told about an embargo until after we had laughed at the legacy media and allowed them to see those binders. Now, this, I hardly need to even express this. This was a big mistake. This was actually the biggest mistake of the day because it allowed a narrative to foment that either we were given some kind of exclusive access to documents when everyone else wasn't, which also was not my understanding. It was my understanding that as soon as we were to go live with this information, simultaneously a link on the Justice Department website would go live and everyone would be able to search the documents or see whatever. It's really a nothing burger, but see whatever it was at the same time. But once this embargo was put into place, of course you respect an embargo. This is typical in journalism, but of course you respect an embargo from the White House. But when that photo went around, we were given permission to post just the front page or the front of the binder, again, with the expectation that the sensible thing to do would be to lift the embargo entirely so that this story wasn't misunderstood and didn't get out of hand. And I got to tell you, that photo that I posted when I said I got a copy of the Epstein binder exclusive, that word exclusive was aimed at the mainstream media, that I got access to a story about the SDNY stonewalling the White House, and that the mainstream media, the corporate media, the legacy media were left out in the cold because they're liars. But this is the part of the story that I got to tell you. I was frantic because I saw exactly what the reaction was. It looked like it appeared, to be honest, like we were engaging in clickbait. It appeared that we were teasing people. It appeared that, it almost appeared like it was in bad taste. And I was frantically texting the White House, please lift the embargo. Please let us post this, because I didn't want what happened to happen. I didn't want for there to be any kind of tease. I didn't want there to be a misconception, and a totally understandable misconception about what the story was, that it wasn't the binder itself that contained the story. It was the letter from Pam Bondi that was the story. So a very critical mistake happened with that botched embargo. And I don't want to drone on about this for too long, but I do just want to say this is the story, the SDNY stonewalling Pam Bondi. And I understand also, I can see it in the comment section right now. And I have spent the last 24 hours reading all of your mentions. So I have seen everything from good faith questions, and there are many, to the vitriol that's being hurled at me. And while I, of course, don't condone or enjoy the vitriol, I do understand that the Epstein files are deeply resonate with the American people because this man committed heinous crimes against underage girls. And the implications are that politicians and people in power covered up for him, that he was connected to the intelligence community. And it's not only an egregious thing that happened, but it is also tied to our distrust of government being weaponized against us. And to have this seem like some kind of bait and switch, to have people think that they were going to get the dirtiest dirt in that file and then not, people were mad about that. I totally get that. So while I don't condone the vitriol, I think it's a valid question, but the real story behind it was not some kind of bait and switch, was not some kind of clickbait, was not some kind of anything other than some critical mistakes in a botched embargo that was made. And again, I know you guys, we've been through a lot together. We've been through COVID, we've been through January 6th, we've been through the weaponization of the DOJ, we've been through assassinations and elections and electioneering and rigging and stealing and all of that. And you know me. You know that I'm a straight shooter. You know that I'm unafraid to criticize politicians, especially on our own side. You know that I am transparent with you, authentic with you, honest with you. There's some skepticism, I know, about whether the story of the SDNY is true. And I will say one thing about that. The SDNY has a history of stonewalling. They have a history of being the most corrupt district. They compete with the DC district for the most corrupt district. It is not a long stretch at all to believe that they are hiding or destroying documents. We have other whistleblowers who are coming forward saying that members of the intel community are actively destroying documents about various things, because we know that cutting off the head of the snake, meaning replacing political appointees at the top of this agency, doesn't root out all of the deep state agents in the swamp who wish to subvert the president of the United States and you. So it's not hard for me to believe that the SDNY story is true. I didn't talk to the whistleblower Pam Bondi mentioned. I didn't see what communication happened. I suppose it's plausible that that could be untrue. Why that would be untrue, I don't know. I guess I tend to believe the SDNY story, although we'll find out, is what I'm trying to say. We will find out. We will find out within days, if not weeks, if the SDNY story is true. And if it's true, then it's one of the biggest scandals in American political history, at least recent American political history. And it's a lesson to us that the swamp needs to be drained, that what Elon Musk is doing, doging these agencies, is not only necessary, but urgent. And if it's not true, then heads should roll. I give Attorney General Pam Bondi 2 weeks, is what she said in her letter. 2 weeks. Show us these documents. Show us what the SDNY has hidden from you. Give it to us, declassified, immediately. Be transparent, be open. Because if what we were told about the SDNY is not true, then the story becomes a whole different thing. That's all I wanted to cover. You guys can ask any kind of questions that you want. You can leave any kind of comments. I know that we're looking through them. Give me a second to read a couple of these so that we can respond to some, and then we'll talk about Zelensky a little bit. Jay says a lot of people are mad at you because you didn't produce the list. Well, I don't have the list. All I have is the Rolodex that was in that binder, but we already had that publicly. I think they're mad at the wrong people. Yes, I agree. I mean, you should be mad at the SDNY because that's the biggest scandal that's the biggest scandal here. That's the story. That's what I posted. And here's the thing. You guys are the most wonderful people. You are so committed to discerning what is true that when I posted, listen, this was the real story, not the botched embargo. That is a story, but it's actually almost an annoying distraction. The real story is the SDNY. And that is what I guess was somewhat marred by the botched embargo, which is frustrating. It's frustrating. Okay. Stefan says the photo op with the Epstein binders was cringe. Well, Stefan, if you listened to the past 10 minutes, how long have we been on here? If you listen to the past 10 minutes, then you know that there was no intentional photo op. It was, first of all, telling the legacy media that they were where they belonged in the bushes and that we were where we belonged in the White House because we elected President Trump. And then we had every intention of going live within the next 2 minutes. All right. Shall we move on to Zelensky. I think we should. Let's move on to Zelensky. If this is not the craziest story, we're going to watch this video of Trump kicking Zelensky out of office. But first, I do want to talk to you about ivermectin. The ivermectin case study is not an isolated incident, what happened during COVID. It is a playbook. It is a playbook of what's going to happen to us in the future. What happened to us during COVID? Well, Big Pharma and public health officials, politicians, doctors, pharmacists told us ivermectin had no efficacy against COVID, that it was a horse drug, a cow drug, that we shouldn't take it. That wasn't true. Studies showed that it did have efficacy against COVID. But the reason they lied to us is because they otherwise would not have been able to get emergency use authorization for their vaccine. So they lied to us in order to profit, even though we could have benefited from ivermectin. This playbook is going to be used against us again, and I don't like that. I don't like that. The lesson here, of course, is don't trust the public health. Don't trust public health officials, but also having the right resources matters. Having those resources before an emergency happens matters. That's why I'm proud to partner with All Family Pharmacy. They offer over 200 different medications and bundled emergency packages to ensure that you are ready for anything. At the heart of this effort is the Make America Healthy Again movement, a call to take control of your health and be prepared for the unexpected. And if you aren't prepared and you find yourself in a pinch, All Family Pharmacy has you covered with overnight delivery. Check out allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz. And because you are part of this movement, you can get an exclusive discount if you use my code Liz10 at checkout. Again, that's allfamilypharmacy.com/Liz, code Liz10. All right. Speaking of transparency, which, by the way, is what we should demand from this most transparent administration in history at all times. Speaking of transparency, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky traveled to the White House today to meet with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. Now, Ukraine and America were supposed to sign a historic critical minerals deal and discuss peace negotiations, but that's not what happened. Instead, we witnessed one of the most historic moments in American history, and we got to see firsthand what actual America First policy and power looks like. Thank you, President Trump. We are now going to watch the explosive argument that happened in the Oval Office and walk through it step by step. First, the arrival of Zelensky, and here is President Trump's reaction. Take a look.
Ready close? How are you? Ready shut?
He's all dressed up today.
President Trump, what's your message to Vladimir Putin, sir? President Trump, President Trump, you got a message to Vladimir Putin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I love that from President Trump. He's all dressed up. He's all dressed up. What does he mean? He means Zelensky's in costume, and it is a signal. Everything President Trump says is both authentic, but also it's a message to whoever he's talking to that he is onto them. He knows that Zelensky is an actor. He knows that Zelensky is trying to look like an operative, even though that's disrespectful to show up to the White House dressed in running clothes or fake fatigues or whatever it is. He's not on the front line of this war. So then the meeting between Zelensky and President Trump convened in the Oval Office. The meeting was going all right, but then things took a turn. Take a look.
This thing over with. You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred. And I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world. I want to get the thing set. I'm aligned with Europe. I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way. So that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
Hey, I will respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
Can I ask you?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So he occupied our parts, big parts of Ukraine, part of East and Crimea. So he occupied it on 2014. So during a lot of years, so I'm not speaking about just Biden, but those time was Obama, then President Obama, then President Trump, then President Biden, now President Trump, and God bless, now President Trump will stop him. But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people. You know what the contact line?
2015.
2014.
2014 and 2015.
2014.
Yeah. So
I
he
was not here.
Yeah, but
That's exactly
but-
right.
Yes, but during 2014 till 2022, yeah, the situation the same. The people have been dying on the contact line. Nobody stopped him. You know that we had conversations with him, a lot of conversation, my bilateral conversation, and we signed with him, me, like a new president. In 2019, I signed with him the deal. I signed with him, Macron and Merkel, we signed ceasefire. Ceasefire, all of them told me that he will never go. We signed him with gas contract. Yes, but after that,
Look at
he
Trump's face
broken
right
this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are
Mr.
not
President,
strong-
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for
Have you
trying to
ever
bring
been-
it into this
Have
conflict.
you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been
Okay, hold on there for
to.
just a second.
Come on.
Hold
I've
there for just a second.
actually.
Look at the difference. Pause the video. Okay, look at the picture that we have right now. Look at Zelensky's posture. He's perched on the edge of the chair and his arms are folded, and he is in what a body language expert would call a defensive stance, where your shoulders are kind of hunched and your arms are together and you're perched on the edge of your seat. That's defensive. That indicates dishonesty. Contrast that with President Trump. President Trump is sitting there comfortably with his arms in a position where if you are nervous, if you are agitated, if your heart rate is elevated, you cannot hold your hands like that because your fingers won't stop moving. President Trump is in complete control of this meeting. Keep it rolling.
Actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have
And
problems.
do you think that it's
I will
respectful
answer.
to come to the Oval Office
I
of the
will
United
answer.
States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's exactly
Remember
what
this.
you're doing.
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
You will
good.
feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very
You
strong.
will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not in a
Mr.
good
Brown,
position.
I was
You don't have the
saying-
cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards.
cards.
But right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War
What you're-
III.
what you're
You're
speaking
gambling
about.
with
What you're
World
speaking
War
about.
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country,
I'm
that's
with all
backed
respect to
you
your
far
answer.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once? This
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States
what
of
you're speaking
America
about.
and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can...
not speaking loudly. He's not
Yeah.
speaking loudly. Your country's
Can I-
in big
can I-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot
answer?
of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this. You
Pause
have
it
a
for one
damn
second.
good
Pause
chance
it for
of
one
coming
second.
out okay because
Do you
of
want to know? Do you want to know why President Trump is one of the most effective negotiators and yes, diplomats in the entire world? Because he does not, he is so disciplined on his tactic. He is so disciplined on letting, in this case, letting Zelensky know that he, Donald Trump, and JD Vance, president and vice president of the United States, understand the position of weakness that Zelensky's in. And he's articulating that you are not in a position to tell us how to feel. Your country is in trouble. You need us. He is telling Zelensky things that Zelensky already knows so that Zelensky understands that Trump knows it. It's beyond textbook. It's a masterclass in negotiation. Keep rolling.
Because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks.
You haven't
been
been
alone.
You
And
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid
thank you.
president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about West
If you
people?
didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me.
equipment,
Oh, we touched
if
him.
you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, this is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course.
Okay,
yes.
pause it
It's
right
gonna
there.
be a
Do you know what
very hard
Zelensky
thing to
just
do
did?
Business like this.
Pause it right there. Do you know what Zelensky just did? In 3 days, he said, that's what Putin says. He is insinuating to President Trump's face that President Trump is repeating a Russian talking point. This man is beyond an actor. This man is engaging. He's beyond a welfare queen. He is beyond just a despicable globalist. This man is engaging in outright evil. And I have never been more thankful that President Trump is the one dealing with him. Roll the tape. Watch how Trump handles this.
Business like this.
Again,
I tell you.
just say thank you.
I said a lot of times thank you to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the
I'm
cards.
thankful.
You're buried there. Your people are dying.
tell you
You're
again,
running low
I know.
on soldiers.
Don't-
Listen,
don't please,
you're running
Mr.
low on
President.
soldiers. It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And
President.
then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go, and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
with guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
it doesn't
with
matter
me.
for you.
Okay,
that
pause
wasn't
it. Pause
with
it.
me.
I want to talk
That
about what's
was
happening
with-
here. What's happening here is Donald Trump is strategically exposing Zelensky to you. Now, you and I may already know the reality of what Zelensky is, but President Trump knows that the eyes of the entire world are on them in the Oval Office right now, and President Trump is showing the world that Zelensky does not want a ceasefire, that he is a liar. He does not want an end to this war. He just wants a continuing gravy train from you, the American taxpayer. Keep playing the tape.
That was with a guy named Biden who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President. I'm sorry.
It's going to be a tough deal to make,
Um,
because the attitudes have to change.
what if
A tough deal to make because the attitudes have to change. This is the most incredible diplomacy on the world stage that I have ever seen. And I am so grateful for this transparency. Usually this stuff happens behind closed doors, and then what happens? The mainstream media reports in their own agenda-driven way exactly what they want you to think, and you sometimes miss the reality of what actually happened. Okay, so then we have Donald Trump kicking Zelensky out of the White House, and we can cue the video of Zelensky walking out of the White House. I believe we have that. Do we not, Tim? We'll pull that up, and we have that. We'll pull that up in just a minute. He leaves the White House. Even the ambassador from Ukraine, by the way, knows what a disaster this was, because if you saw the picture of her face, The emotion on her face. Here we go.
I said to you,
I want a
with
ceasefire
guarantees.
because you get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our
Look at her
people about
face.
ceasefire.
She's holding onto the bridge of her nose. She's like,
Listen,
oh my word, what
I
is
said
happening
to
here?
you,
I want a
with
ceasefire
guarantees.
because you
What
get
is
a
happening
ceasefire
here?
faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about
Because the
ceasefire.
hoax has been exposed. The hoax have been exposed. President Trump made a statement on Truth Social afterward. He said, "We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. And I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace," the president says. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he's ready for peace. So what does this mean? What about all of the money that we have given to Zelensky? Here, the big picture of this war between Ukraine and Russia has almost never been about what Putin did or what Zelensky didn't want Putin to do. That's what the media always wanted you to believe. But from a domestic standpoint, regardless of your position of whether Vladimir Putin was justified to invade, which most of us agree he was not, regardless of your position on that, the way that American politicians have handled this has reflected a bigger globalist agenda. It's reflected an agenda to spend so much money on Zelensky that our dollar in the United States is devalued. And I know some people think that this is so boring to get into this, but I think it's critically important to understand the playbook of the left, especially when the playbook is convoluted. They wanted to devalue our dollar. They wanted inflation to go up because these globalist politicians don't want the US dollar to be the world reserve currency. They want some other BRICS nation currency to be the world reserve currency because, again, I know this is convoluted, but it's also quite simple and diabolical. The US power, our hegemony around the world is not just based on our military power. We're not just the strongest, most powerful nation on earth because we can look at any other country and say, I'll nuke you, I'll destroy you. We are the strongest, most powerful nation on earth because we are economically the most powerful, because other countries need us. They rely on the US economy. And President Trump, by the way, has uniquely understood this from the beginning of his first term. It's something I don't think any other president, even Republican presidents, have ever fully understood. And President Trump has always leveraged our economy as, well, the leverage that he needs to get the concessions that he wants, even from our allies or our adversaries. But the point of this is if the US dollar is devalued to the point where inflation is so high and it's removed as the world reserve currency, then we, the United States of America, lose our power, our economic power around the world. We no longer have the leverage that we previously had economically, and we are no longer the most powerful nation, except for the fact that we have what? Nuclear weapons? But does anybody believe that we're actually going to go and drop them on other countries just to extract concessions if they take advantage of us on trade? Of course not, because we are also an ethical and just nation. And so what the gravy train of money to Zelensky, unaccountable to what he's going to do with it. He has disinterest in any kind of peace deal. What this has always been about is a globalist plot to unseat the United States from power. And you know who understands that? Zelensky understands that. Do you know who else understands that? Trump understands that. So that being said, this is why it has never been more important than to take control of your wealth. Don't let your life savings become a casualty of this, whether it's failing banks, currency wars, actual wars, the devaluation of your currency because politicians spend it to serve the globalists. Now is the time to call the only precious metal dealer I trust, American Heart for Gold. They'll show you how to protect your savings and retirement accounts by diversifying your wealth portfolio with physical gold and silver. With the finest products, amazing customer service, a buyback commitment, American Heart for Gold, they're a wonderful company. They support content like this, committed to bringing you the truth. Tell them I sent you. They'll give you up to $15,000 of free silver on your first order. Call them now. You can click the link in the description of this episode or call 866-996-5172. That's 866-996-5172 or text Liz to 998899. Again, the phone number is 866-996-5172 or text Liz to 998899. Also, I mentioned that we met with Secretary of Health and Human yesterday, and that was quite an experience. I'm excited to see what he's going to do, but we're all Maha on this show, so let's do that. Let's Maha and go buy some Masa chips. They're free of seed oils. Masa actually only has 3 ingredients: organic nixtamalized corn, grass-fed and finished beef tallow, and Redmond sea salt. No seed oils, no pesticides, no fake ingredients, no toxins. Back in the day, the 80s and until the 80s and 90s, all chips and fried foods, most fried foods at least, used to be cooked in tallow. But then corporations switched to seed oils to, they said, save themselves costs. They wanted to increase their profits, which, okay, except for the fact that they also pretended that seed oils were healthier, which was a lie. Heart disease has skyrocketed since this switch. So is obesity and every inflammation-related condition. But Masa Chips is getting back to the good stuff. They're getting away from seed oils because that's what you want. My husband loves them. My sister does too. I encourage you to check out Masa Chips at masachips.com. Use my promo code Liz Wheeler for a discount. That's masachips.com, promo code Liz Wheeler. Offer is good on the first order only. All right, back to Zelensky. Now, reports indicate, and if this is true, this is hilarious, that Zelensky's lunch, which he was supposed to have eaten at the White House, was given to White House staff after he was kicked out of the White House. I hope that's true. I don't have any evidence that I don't have any firsthand confirmation that that's true. I hope that that is true. This is, when I see President Trump taking Zelensky to task, this is Trump at his best. This is why we elected Trump. Now, of course, Zelensky understands exactly what he has done, that he has cut off his access to not just the United States, but to our wallets. And now he says, thank you, America. Thank you for your support. Thank you for this visit. Thank you, President, Congress, and the American people. Ukraine needs just and lasting peace and are working exactly for that. But the thing is, it is too late. It is too late when Zelensky has lost even Lindsey Graham. Tim, do we have a video of Lindsey Graham? All right, roll Lindsey Graham.
President Trump I talked to last night, he was upbeat about the deal. I've never been more proud of President Trump. The American people in the world, you don't trifle with this man. He was very positive. He was very upbeat. He wanted to get a ceasefire. He wants to end the war. And Zelensky felt like he needed to bait Trump in the Oval Office. JD was awesome. This was a missed opportunity. And the question for me, for the Ukrainian people, I don't know if Zelensky can ever get you to where you want to go with the United States. Either he dramatically changes or you need to get somebody new.
Well, that's not exactly the stance that I would take. He dramatically changes. We need to get somebody new. I don't think that we need to keep supporting the war in Ukraine. I don't think that even if Zelensky were, can he even be voted out of office at this point? Or is he taking Ukraine away from the pretend democracy that they were and just now they're just basically a dictatorship, because that is what Zelensky is. I don't even know if he could be voted out of office. Nobody knows, because he has so violated the democratic principles. And I say democratic, small d, actual democratic principles of Ukraine. I'm excited to see what happens. What I encourage the Trump administration to do is for President Trump to task Elon Musk publicly. I absolutely loved when President Trump says, I want Elon Musk to be even more, he didn't say based, but even more based with his doging of these administrative agencies. Get even more, what was the word, Tim? Aggressive. I want Elon Musk to get even more aggressive with doging these agencies. I love when President Trump gives directives to his administration publicly, because then we can all help hold them to account and we can all see it as it happens. I think President Trump should task Elon Musk with doging all of the money that has been given from the U.S. taxpayer to Lindsey Graham. Think about how much money that is. Think about the comment that Zelensky made about he only received, or at least he claims, half of the money that the U.S. sent him. What happened to that other money? What happened to the rest of that? And what are you using the money that you got for? And are any politicians, whether American or around the world, getting any kind of kickbacks or profits from getting you this money? I think the next use of DOGE should be Elon Musk doging every cent that we have sent to this absolute corrupt actor, Zelensky, who, again, was exposed beyond repair today. The Pope has suffered a health setback. He has been in the hospital with double pneumonia for quite some time now, and there's an update from the Vatican, which we will get to in just a moment. I've told you that my husband and I quit our health insurance, which is kind of a big deal, I think. Health insurance is something that you're told that you have to have, but it's confusing. It's really expensive. It's super frustrating because it often doesn't cover what you want it to cover when you have a health event. Claim denials, for example, are becoming more and more common. I think the number is 1 in 5 Obamacare claims were denied last year. In my opinion, that's unacceptable. It's also why my family switched to Crowd Health. Crowd Health is so amazing. We chatted with the Crowd Health CEO to make sure that we could feel assurance that if we had a health event in our family, it would be covered by the crowd at Crowd Health. It's not health insurance. I call it assurance because it's a better way to pay for healthcare through crowdfunding. It's just $175 a month for an individual, $575 a month for a family of 4 or more. Take a moment and compare that to how much you're paying for healthcare premiums right now, and you get access to a community of people who are willing to help you in the event of an emergency. That means access to telemedicine visits, discounted prescriptions, so much more, all without doctors' networks getting in the way. And of course, you'll join the crowd, a group of members like you, like me and my family, who want to help pay for each other's unexpected medical events. Let Crowd Health help with your healthcare needs. Get started today for just $99 per month for your first 3 months. Go to joincrowdhealth.com. Use promo code Liz. Crowd Health is not insurance. Learn more at joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com. Promo code Liz. All right. This is also quite big news. President Trump is about to take the stage for a historic address to Congress. And you better believe the mainstream media is already gearing up to spin it, to lie to you, to gaslight you. But here at Blaze Media, we are bringing you the unfiltered truth, live, raw, without the nonsense. That's why we will be streaming the speech live. We will be hosting a roundtable event with top Blaze TV hosts, giving you real-time reactions, analysis, and the truth that the mainstream media won't touch. Yes, we have won some battles, but we haven't yet won the war. The fight for America's future is far from over. This speech is setting the tone for what is to come next. Will President Trump's vision push us forward, or will the resistance in Washington try to stop it at every turn? We're going to break it all down live in real time with no corporate agenda. The best part, we are simulcasting this across all Blaze channels, so no matter where you tune in, you will be getting real coverage from the voices you trust. Oh, and one more thing. You're going to want to stay till the end because we've got an exclusive sneak peek at Glenn Beck's NASA whistleblower special. It's explosive. So mark your calendars for Tuesday, March 4th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Set your reminders. Join me and other Blaze TV hosts live. This is one speech you do not want to miss, so I will see you there. All right, Pope Francis reportedly suffers a major health setback as his respiratory condition worsens. This, according to the National Review. Pope Francis was put on mechanical ventilation Friday after suffering a major health setback as he fights a complex respiratory illness. The Vatican announced the Holy Father, 88 years old, suffered an isolated episode of bronchospasm, or a sudden narrowing of the airways in the lungs, and then experienced vomiting and a sudden worsening of his respiratory condition, the Vatican said. Well, regardless of your views of the Catholic Church, regardless of your religious beliefs even, I think it's always sad to see someone in a position of power suffering from a serious illness. And this has such implications. All the lives and deaths of all popes have such global implications. Again, whether you're Catholic or not, regardless of what you think of the Catholic Church, the implications of this, I pray for the Holy Father, for Pope Francis. I pray for his health. I pray for recovery. I also pray for his soul if God deems that this is, in fact, the time to take him. We'll continue to cover this as it unfolds. We also will be covering sometime here in the near future what's going to happen next. The Holy Father is 88 years old, so whether it's something that's imminent or whether it's down the line a little bit. Of course, we will be seeing a transition to a new pope sometime in the future. And what's interesting, I think, about how popes are selected is that it doesn't happen often. And I would make the argument that the Pope is at least as influential as American politicians, for example, especially because of his global influence over the faithful. And yet, we know who, for example, when there's a primary for a US president, we know who all the contenders are on the Republican primary side, all the Democrat contenders. You can probably, off the top of your head, name 20 people who've, more than that, probably 30 people who've run for president in the past decade or two. So you have an idea. We even have an idea of who might run against President Trump in 2028. Who on the Democrat side wants to be president? Who's waiting in the wings on the Republican side? We have an idea, is what I'm trying to say, of who might be the next US president. But despite the fact that the Pope of the Catholic Church is so influential, we don't often understand the process of how a new pope is selected and who the contenders are and who is most likely or possibly going to be the next pope and what their background is. Even when the front runners are announced, I think there's a lot of frantic Google searches. Who is this person? What's their ideology? Are they conservative? Are they liberal? Are they biblically sound? Are they theologically correct? What have they done before? Who have they studied with? And so we're gonna do a deeper dive into the process of what happens after a pope passes. But of course, it's a little bit of a touchy topic because you don't want to get out over your skis. The Holy Father is suffering, and we pray for his health. We pray for his soul, and that is where it is right now. We do have breaking news. The State Department terminates U.S. support of Ukraine energy grid restoration. President Trump is already following through on what just happened. The State Department, this is according to, I believe, NBC, the State Department this week terminated a U.S. agency for international development. Oh, this is a USAID story. A U.S. agency for international development initiative that has invested hundreds of millions of dollars to help restore Ukraine's energy grid from attacks by the Russian military, according to two USAID officials working on the agency's Ukraine mission. You'll love to see it. Every U.S. aid contract should be canceled. Marco Rubio is now the administrator of USAID, and that, my friends, we're seeing the result of that before our very eyes. And the fact that this happened in Ukraine, mwah, icing on the cake. Absolute icing on the cake. All right, we have run out of time for today. We always have things to talk about. I appreciate each and every one of you. You are truly the best audience in the world. I am so grateful for the privilege of sitting here with you, breaking down the things that are most important almost every day, every time we go live here. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube at youtube.com/Liz_Wheeler. Also on x.com/Liz_Wheeler, on Apple and Spotify for the audio versions of the show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm Liz Wheeler. This is The Liz Wheeler Show.